Welcome to the Obscure Files. In today's video, we are going back in time to discuss a strange event that gripped and continues to puzzle the small town of Mattoon, Illinois. This case can be taken as residents being paranoid or of a potentially sinister plot by a shady individual. It's September 1st, 1944. World War II is raging overseas. In the small town of Mattoon, Illinois, the streets are quiet, and the real terror for this town isn't coming from across the ocean. It's coming in through the bedroom windows. Imagine waking up to a sickly sweet smell, like cheap perfume or rotting flowers. You try to get out of bed to check the stove, but your legs won't move. You're paralyzed. You look toward the window and see a tall, thin shadow in a black cap vanish into the night. You want to scream, but your throat feels like it's filled with thick, oily cotton. For 2 weeks in September 1944, this was the reality for the people of Mattoon. Today, we're diving into the mystery of the Mad Gasser, a case that baffled the FBI, sent armed vigilantes into the streets, and remains one of the most famous examples of mass hysteria or a forgotten serial predator in American history. Hit that subscribe button for more videos on the paranormal, the unexplained, and the strange. The official start of this panic was September 1st, but the terror actually began a night earlier. The town was already on edge, with many men away at war and the women left to guard the home front alone. On August 31st, Urban Rafe and his wife woke up to a strange, nauseating odor. Urban began vomiting violently. When his wife tried to get up to help him, she found she was paralyzed from the waist down. The symptoms lasted for hours. They thought it was a gas leak, but the stove was fine. The next night, September 1st, Mrs. Eileen Kearney smelled the same sweet flowery scent. Within minutes, her legs went numb. Her sister, who was staying with her, also smelled the gas but was able to call the police. As Eileen lay trapped in her own body, she described the sensation as a coldness spreading from her feet upward. When Eileen's husband, Bert, a taxi driver, returned home later that night, he saw a tall, thin man in dark clothing and a tight-fitting cap lurking near their window. He gave chase, but the figure disappeared into the night. He then retreated to his home, only to find his wife paralyzed. Much like Urban Rafe's wife, her paralysis lasted about 30 minutes before she regained the feeling in her legs. The local paper, the Mattoon Journal-Gazette, ran a headline the next day, "Anesthetic Prowler on the Loose." The choice of words was perfect for a panic. Anesthetic implied a medical precision, while prowler suggested something predatory. And that's when the floodgates opened. Over the next 10 days, the police were flooded with over 30 reports. The symptoms were always the same: a sweet smell, followed by nausea, burning of the mouth and throat, and temporary paralysis of the legs. Up to this point, there was no evidence of any such individual performing the gassings. There were countless reports to police, but there were a few notable reports that had many raising their eyebrows. One instance comes from the Cordes family. Belula Cordes found a white cloth on her porch. When she picked it up, she decided to smell it, and she described the sensation as an electric shock. Her face swelled, and she began spitting out blood. Another report comes from two women known as the Smith sisters. They reported a buzzing sound outside their window, like a motorized spray gun, followed by a blue vapor filling the room. One local woman claimed she saw an ape-like man with long arms pumping gas through her screen. Other reports claim that witnesses saw a figure that appeared to be a woman dressed as a man, lurking around the neighborhood in the areas of the incidents. The town was in a frenzy. Men stayed home from work to guard their houses with shotguns. The police, led by Chief C.E. Cole, were overwhelmed. They brought in state investigators and even asked the FBI for help. But every time they arrived at a scene, there was nothing. No chemicals, no fingerprints, no evidence of any sort of struggle. It was as if the gasser was a ghost, leaving only the terrifying pungent scent of his concoction behind. To this day, there has never been anybody convicted of any crime in relation to the Mattoon incident. There are theories to suggest what could have been the cause of this historic event. The first theory, and the most logical, is that this was a case of mass hysteria. It was wartime, the town was stressed, and the newspapers were sensationalizing every report. Once people expected to smell gas, their brains created the symptoms. Interestingly, when the police chief threatened to arrest anyone who made a false report, the attacks stopped almost instantly. Another theory is that Chief Cole eventually suggested the gas was actually carbon tetrachloride or other chemicals drifting from the nearby Atlas Imperial Diesel Engine Company. The plant was producing shell casings for the war. The wind patterns matched the dates of the attacks. However, the factory denied this, noting that no employees became ill or experienced what the residents of Mattoon were experiencing. It would also fail to explain why a tall, thin man was seen lurking at the exact moments the gas appeared. Then came a dark theory. Years later, researcher Scott Maruna identified a potential suspect, Farley Llewellyn. Llewellyn was a local genius and a social outcast. He was a brilliant chemist who had been kicked out of the University of Illinois and supposedly kept a secret lab in his basement. Maruna argues that Farley had the motive, revenge against the town, and the means, knowledge of chemicals like nitrobenzene. Some even suggest his sisters helped him, which would explain the reports of a woman dressed as a man. Farley eventually ended up in a mental institution, and many believe that the secrets of the mad gasser went in with him. Over the span of several weeks, the town of Mattoon was plagued by this occurrence. Eventually, the gas subsided. Residents returned their shotguns to their closets. Windows were being reopened to allow in fresh air. Was it a real person with a spray gun, a chemical leak from a war plant, or a town's collective mind playing tricks on itself? We may never know. By mid-September of 1944, the mad gasser of Mattoon vanished as quickly as he arrived. No one was ever arrested, and no permanent injuries were ever recorded. The mystery remains as a reminder of how thin the line is between reality and the things that we can create in our own minds. What do you think? Was Farley Llewellyn a real-life supervillain? Or was the sweet smell just the scent of a town's anxiety and breaking point? Let me know in the comments. And be sure you're subscribed for all things paranormal, unexplained, and strange. Hit that like button if you enjoyed today's video, and drop a comment letting me know what other strange events you'd like covered in a future video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.